So thank you all for joining, and thank you so much to Tupten Kunga Center in Florida and Patty for hosting us this evening. And let's just start once again, Patty, I forgot, with the Refuge Bodhichitta prayer, just to get ourselves in the mindset. And this is often traditionally done, this 4-line prayer before we start teachings. With the Tibetans, when the Tibetan Lamas come, we do a lot of prayers beforehand, but the very last one is then they come back to the Refuge and Bodhichitta. Again, remembering as we recite, we're not just reciting words. Take a moment, just close your eyes for a minute. If you'd like, take a few deep breaths. And as you inhale, we are inhaling focus and concentration for our time together. Exhaling distraction. Just letting go any anxieties or distractions of the day, giving yourself over to this hour and a half. And just reflecting for a moment on what we tend to reach for when we're struggling. Is it a valid source of protection for you from more suffering? What about the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha as a valid source of protection? And if we really seek refuge in them, slowly as we learn the qualities of them, that's usually in another class, the class I'm teaching on Mondays, Refuge. But by turning to them, even understanding the path as we're rolling it out in this course, maybe I deepen my relationship with my practice. The real reason is so I can become a Buddha quickly, if I can reach a fully enlightened state quickly. But that's a means to the goal of benefiting all sentient beings perfectly. With that in mind, let's recite this prayer. We'll do it twice in English and once in the phonetics chanted. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. O Sangye Jodan Zogi Jonamla Janchu Bardu De Nigyab Suchi Dagi Chiningi Beso Namgi Drola Penchu Sangye Druparjo. Thank you. Today, just on a funny note, I just wanted to mention is when I was living in the Philadelphia area, a neighboring high school, a teacher found me some years ago, and he would ask me to come once or twice a year to give a talk for his world religions class. And they're generally juniors or seniors, and it's a wonderful school, and he's a wonderful guy. And I've really enjoyed going over for the hour and a half once in a while, roughly like that, or, an hour. And, I turn up like this. I explain why I don't have any hair, why I dress in maroon. And for students at that age, I remembered myself in high school. I don't know if it's weird to them or it's a little off-putting, and I'm just myself, and I explain a bit about the Dharma, and I explain how I got here. And then he's told me in the past that the students have commented, a number of them, that it was like the richest thing of their year to have me come. Like, it just, it wasn't me, it was just getting this experiential experience of somebody who's living this path. But he contacts me. So now that I'm out here, and all the schools were shut for a while, it's all on Zoom. Any guest teachers are on Zoom. They're not having extra people come to the school. So he contacted me to do something in March, and it's, the class starts at 7:45 in the morning in the Philadelphia area. That means it's 4:45 for me here. But also, I didn't know they can start classes that early. It seems so early somehow. So I just said to him, well, that's 4:45 for me here. But then I did tell him I'm actually going to be in person in April. Like, would you like me to come in? It might be too late for the class, but I just said, if you'd like me to come in person, and they're not sure they're having in person, but I said, otherwise, I can do from Philadelphia and Zoom. But it was so cute. And he said, oh, I didn't think about the time zone. It's so cute. Such a sweet guy. So I may pass on the 4:45 wake up or the start, but we'll see what happens. Very cute. So I would ask you to continue, if you can, to reflect on those 3 homework reflections I gave you. For me, the more momentous one that affected me in my life was this life story of the Buddha. Honestly, when I early on thought back, and it started in conversations with some friends. We were studying in India, doing retreats in India. We had the good fortune, a number of us, some years ago, we decided, there were many people, what I call in the Buddhist circuit. So they decided to take 6 months off of their life. They had the leisure to do it, or a year off, and really delve into the Dharma, where you could study. There were lots of programs going on over there. And then you would finish a teaching level, go to one of our retreat centers in India or Nepal, and then do some preliminary practices full on, or do some retreat. And then we would come back to teachings, and different friends, you'd make friends there. And then you'd get together and you were kind of comparing, like, oh, did you do that retreat? How did it go? I'm thinking to do that next. And it was a really rich time in the late 80s, 90s. And even when I was running the center in the 90s, I managed to take some time off to do that and get some space, which is an important part if you're involved in a spiritual center. That's the whole point. You're not making much money, so can you at least get the time to be able to do something like that? So I've been fortunate, and we would compare notes. And at one point, some of my friends, we were talking one night, and they were kind of like, do you think you can get enlightened? Like we never really thought about it. You say the refuge prayer, so I can get enlightened to benefit all living beings, but you have to ask yourself, and I want you to do this in this class, and any class I teach, it needs to be experiential. Don't make it dry for yourself that this is just book knowledge, right? Can you somehow think about how does this relate to your personal life? It's really helpful to do that. So I remember this one person asking, and then I thought, I hadn't really thought about enlightenment. Like, I said the words, but I didn't really know about my own relationship with that. Like, could I get enlightened? And it always seemed like, yeah, some life, like not now, not this life. I'm not able, I'm not worthy enough. My mind's too diluted. But in relating to the Buddha's life story, then it had more meaning for me of when I got bored with things, when I decided to make a change. I'm just like you. I'm just like all of you. There's just different seeds in our consciousness. Each of you, you don't know when this particular seed will pop in the next moment. And suddenly you go, I had a different seed pop the other day, and regarding Land of Medicine Buddha. And, can you do me a favor though and talk me out of this, please? Because I had this seed pop that suddenly I thought, well, maybe I should just ask the board if they want me to be the director, and I'm like, and then I woke up the next morning, I was like, no more, no more. But again, something had shifted that created that thought to arise. And I'm talking seriously now, meaning what positive things are you creating in your life right now? And what other habits are happening that keep you away from stuff? My own ordination happened that way. Just getting the ability to ask was certain things were going on. Not that I could see all the karma, because it's very sophisticated and subtle, but I could see that I was creating things going in a certain way. I had other choices that I could have at times broken out and gone this way. But all these things were moving along. That was what managed to get me ordained. And I could see it almost going by me. I could see it almost like missing the, so again, with your spiritual practice, please look at that. Like what Jeff was saying of, he's gone away for times. We all have, and gone back. And what did I need to do to kind of return realistically? You have to do what fits in your life. You can't push and squeeze. And some people will never be able to do 3-month retreat in one time. It's just not going to work in their life, right? It's not a problem. You find other ways to every day, a little bit every day. And they also say, some people have attraction to retreat, and they look at retreaters and go, well, that's the practice. But a lot of times people serving teachers or people serving others, you create incredible amounts of merit doing that, helping your family, teaching kids and you have no idea, as long as you have that mindset, the motivation. So try to make it real for you, of the Buddha's life story of, I remember for me being in politics years ago, something came before I even knew Buddhism. And something was like, this is it. I'm going to make more money and get another job, and I'm still going to die. Like, this is what I'm going to be spending my time doing. Like something, there was the boredom coming up. There was the restlessness of, this isn't really enough. Like, people are struggling. Am I helping them enough doing this political job? I didn't think so. I didn't feel that way. So I stepped it up a little bit. I looked around me, like what was available, what was happening. At that time, I was starting to study Buddhism at one point, and I looked at that and went, is that an option? I don't know much about it. So then I went into it a little bit more. That's what we do, slowly. I know soon the squirrels are going to be taking over this cabin. I'm pretty sure. They're kind of breaking through the roof, actually. It's a little bit, okay. So I do want you to really consider as we do that. So let's go on a little bit now. Just as a refresher, we started last week the DB video, Discovering Buddhism video, and presenting the path, talked about the life story of the Buddha. I gave you an overview of the Lamrim, the stages on the path, Master Atisha, and how the Lamrim came from his book, A Lamp for the Path. I talked about the 3 scopes of motivation, lower, medium, and higher level, based on the different Lamrim topics, and talked about the 2 wings of the bird of method and wisdom, compassion and emptiness, that we need to fly to enlightenment, and talked a little bit about the Hinayana tradition and the Mahayana tradition. So as we know, one of the first things the Buddha taught was the 4 Noble Truths, to just go on with the Buddha's story briefly. And after the Buddha got enlightened, in those days he walked, and right now it's a 5-hour train ride west of Bodh Gaya, is a small Indian village of Sarnath, India, outside the bustling city of Varanasi. There is an ancient stupa on the site of what was a deer park with a monastery. There is still a deer park there with deer in it, and the remains of this monastery, and that is the site where the Buddha, finally the causes came together for him to teach after getting enlightened. And he taught the 4 Noble Truths, as most of you have heard. Number 1, the first truth, there is suffering. Number 2, there's a cause to the suffering. Number 3, there's an end to the suffering. Thank God. And number 4, there's a path to the end. Those are basically the 4 Noble Truths. And I just want to go into, for a moment, he then kind of disseminated how to live your life according to these truths, to get to the end of suffering and a path to the end, is living by the Noble Eightfold Path. the Noble Eightfold Path. I just want to talk about this. Most of you are familiar with this as well. This is a guide, basically, to end all suffering for you, Noble Eightfold Path. And they're grouped into 3 essential elements of Buddhist practice. Moral conduct, number 1. Mental discipline, number 2. And number 3, wisdom. The Buddha taught the Eightfold Path really virtually throughout all his discourses, okay? And it's very clear to people. So let me just go through, let me just list them first, then I'm going to talk a little bit more about them. Right understanding, right thought, right speech, right action. Number 5, right livelihood. Number 6, right effort. Number 7, right mindfulness. And number 8, right concentration. So the Buddha taught for about 45 years, explaining different ways that were suitable for the diversity of disciples, basically moving through this Eightfold Path of what was going to work for different disciples' minds. And that's why we have a lot of different traditions of Buddhism, different teachings, but all coming from the 84,000 discourses, sutras that he gave in that 45-year span of his teaching. All of it synthesized in the Noble Eightfold Path. Okay, so let me explain a little bit more about these. Okay, these are the ones that deal with ethical conduct. I mentioned the moral kind of conduct as the first division. Ethical conduct. Ethical conduct overall is built on a vast conception of universal love and compassion for all living beings. Okay, this is what the Buddhist teachings obviously is based on. Okay, so so let me just see the. And it's really nice. There's some notes that I made in this. The Buddha's guidelines for simplifying life. Simplifying life. Some of you are very interested in doing that. Whether you're married with large families, it doesn't matter. You can still simplify things. And it's really nice to think about, let's just break things down into wisdom and compassion. It all kind of fits into there. And those are the 2 wings of the bird. Again, compassion, Sanskrit word karuna. Wisdom, prana, Sanskrit words, okay? Compassion can roll into love, charity, kindness, tolerance, empathy, okay? So we certainly know that, you know, qualities, I'd say emotional qualities, okay? And also qualities of the heart. Wisdom, we're talking about, number 1, an intellectual side to coming to the teachings, okay? But we also have this more innate, how does reality actually exist, that we're taking apart in Tibetan Buddhism, intellectually and then experientially in meditation. Very, very important for you to continue. Number 1, the compassion side. Think about living your life now, but really focusing on those qualities: love, charity, kindness, tolerance, empathy. These are things a lot of you are already living. So I salute you, you know, thank you for, like, when and here's what happens is when things break down with other people and a problem arises, and let's say there's a healthcare problem, something happens for you and somebody in your family or yourself or something like that, right? So again, you can go into the doctor's office with love and kindness, tolerance. You know, you're waiting patiently in a waiting room. You're not understanding what they're saying. So empathy for other people there. You can always come in with those qualities rather than coming in with a pile of anxiety, you know, and I need attention now and I don't want to wait and I don't understand the instructions and I can't get the referral. And again, if we bring in these basic qualities, things harmonize. Okay, if you want to bring in wisdom, the wisdom side, you know, you're at a meeting, work meeting on Zoom or with colleagues or in person, and somebody's irritating you. What if you introduce for a moment? I know they don't concretely exist the way they're appearing to me right now. I know my mind is having an affliction and I'm finding them really irritating. That just happens to be my perspective of a limited mind right now. So I don't want to engage negatively with them. I'm going to sit here at the meeting. I'm going to take a couple deep breaths. I'm going to check, is my story completely accurate? The story I'm making up about them. Can I acknowledge mindfully, it is irritating? That's okay. But I'm going to be very cautious not to respond negatively. Keep my mind open and spacious. Think about the other person's situation too. This is how we go through life. Much more harmonious way to go through life that the Buddha introduced to us. And other practices, other religions do as well. So going into the ethical conduct parts of the Noble Eightfold Path, we come to right speech, right action, and right livelihood. Right speech, right action. I think we're familiar. Right speech, I think we're pretty familiar with. We refrain from lying. We try not to talk about people behind their backs. We refrain from harsh, negative speech, yelling at people, abusive speech. We also try to refrain from idle gossip, going on too long about something meaningless like that. So sometimes silence is an appropriate response for something. You don't always have to have something out there. Right action, second one, right action. Okay, this right action aims at promoting kind of a moral, honorable, peaceful conduct. And when I say moral, it's not like a moral majority thing they had in the 70s or 80s, trying to push people into certain molds that are restrictive. I'm not getting on a moral high ground with anyone. I'm just basically like, for me, I try not to kill insects and try not to harm anyone. That's my own little code of conduct. And it works for me. And I feel like every life is valuable. So I'm not going to force it on someone else, right? I mean, unless you come to our Dharma centers where we do, that's some of the precepts we live by. So we would ask you to please refrain for that while you're on our property. But in your own life, you can do what you like. For me, that happens to work as something honorable, something that creates peace in my thing, even with the squirrels all over the roof. Okay. This helps you to abstain from destroying and harming life. It also helps me from stealing, from having misleading feelings, deceit from people, having affairs if you're in an intimate relationship. Like, you're leading your life in a peaceful, honorable way with integrity, authenticity, right? And as a result, you have more confidence, a balanced confidence. I think we're all familiar with that. Right livelihood is number 3. Right livelihood. Oh my God, one day they're going to break in. I'm sorry. They're just really loud outside the cabin. Every time I start a course, they really get all over the place. Right livelihood. What kind of living are you doing? Most of you are doing right livelihood, I would say, and taking care in your activities like that. But Buddhism would be very hard to be a butcher in Buddhism as a Buddhist. It would be very hard to be an arms dealer, a drug dealer, someone like that, a sex trafficker, human trafficker would not be right livelihood. I think we're familiar with these. Okay. So these 3 factors, again, right speech, right action, right livelihood, constitute ethical conduct. Ethical conduct. And the reason this starts out, ethical conduct, is this is considered a kind of indispensable foundation for all your higher spiritual attainments to come. You cannot get concentration. And they'll talk about something you've heard of and I know Buddhism has the 3 of this and the 6 of that, and just slowly relax. There's a lot of information in this course. We have something called the 3 higher trainings. The 3 higher trainings. Ethical conduct, number 1, and this is separate from the Noble Eightfold Path, but they're all related. Ethical conduct, and then build on that foundation, you can develop concentration, shine. Okay? Build on that, you can take the shine and apply it to the wisdom, realizing emptiness when you're in meditation, to have a direct perception of emptiness. So each one rests on the other one. That's why ethical conduct is that foundational situation that we really need. And here's what happens. If you're trying to meditate or you go into retreat, but you kind of stole from somebody and you didn't return it, or you never told them, and it comes up in meditation. I should have apologized to them. I should have returned the book I borrowed. I should have paid back the loan that I didn't, the person died. I didn't tell the daughter that I had this loan against the person that died and I didn't pay it back. That stuff is kind of cruddy. So it will come up and it'll invade your meditation. So we want to have clean, clear slate. Let's go to the next designation, mental discipline. This is like concentration. And this is exactly the way the Noble Eightfold Path is designed, according to the 3 higher trainings. Morality, now mental discipline, concentration, I'll call it, shine, okay? So first we come to right effort. Number 1 is right effort. This is an energetic will, okay, to prevent evil, unwholesome states of mind from arising. Okay, and to get rid of such evil, unwholesome states that have already arisen in your mind. Okay, and number 3, to cause to arise wholesome states. Ones that are already there, enhance those, and ones that haven't developed, to have those arise. Okay, and to develop and bring to perfection good, wholesome states of mind that are already present. So think about in your life right now. Think about and you can do this week. And I'd really like you to work with the Eightfold Path this week with right effort. Are there any unwholesome states of mind in you that seem to be a habit that keep going on? I think we all suffer from delusion. So there's certainly times I'll notice like irritation will arise in my mind. And I'm working with this center now. Centers are challenging, as many of you know. And I'll just notice at a meeting irritation arise, but I really just kind of watch that bubble come up and go, well, yeah, she has a view, it's different than mine. I have this view, I bet I irritate her, when I bring this up. We actually are working very harmoniously together, so there really isn't a lot of that. But I'll just notice a little, like that, so not courting it anymore, but kind of noticing. And I notice that it comes up because there's previous habits of that in my mind. That happens to be one of the things I work on, like that. So just notice those things. But what I'm doing is I do purification practices every day. So that helps me diminish those, to chip away, and whatever any of those unwholesome actions might have caused me to do. So look at that this week. And then what am I doing? What are you doing to enhance more wholesome mind states? Like when I notice suddenly a quick thought that may come up of, I'm really thinking about the other person's experience, really trying to make them comfortable. Not so much like, I need this on the agenda, I want to fight for this. What's their experience? Like that. They must be kind of freaked out in that role. That's kind of intense for them. Yeah. So really putting my heart there for them, to help them, and creating those kind of conditions in your mind, those causes in your mind. So again, really helpful to make that. And this is, again, right effort is this energetic will. I like when it talks about energetic will, preventing the unwholesome, producing the wholesome. What are you doing this week? See what's going on that you need to adjust a little bit. Here's the next one, as far as concentration, right mindfulness. Right mindfulness. Can you be diligently aware? I know we can't do it all the time, but basically mindful, attentive with, first of all, what I'm doing with the body. Okay. Number 2, sensations or feelings. These are kind of the 4 mindfulnesses they talk about. Okay. Number 3, the activities of my mind. Number 4, ideas, thoughts, conceptions, like that. So I've got body, sensations and feelings, mind, and then they separate mind from ideas, thoughts, and conceptions. Chitta, mind, but ideas, thoughts, conceptions, they mean more things like Dharma, things. So can I just be conscious of all my activities, what I'm doing? And it could be simple, could be very simple. If you are someone that rushes through your space every day, you're frantic, right? And you spend part of the time looking for your keys, looking for your phone, looking for your cup, your glasses, where'd you put your sweatshirt, right? This would really benefit you, right mindfulness. This is where right mindfulness comes in. Slow down a little bit, please. Slow down a little bit. And so that when I put my cup down, my mind is there and I know exactly where my cup is now. And if you do lose something, I find I can really quickly retrace and go, the last time I had that, I was in the kitchen. Go back to the kitchen. There it is. Okay. You'll save time with the right mindfulness. Okay. Right concentration. Right concentration is, we have an idea about concentration, and it's tuning up mindfulness even more. Okay. And we're really talking about when you're in more deeper meditation, you know, working on Shine for one, working on calm abiding for one with its various 9 levels, like that. And so if you are in meditation, for instance, first of all, I'm able to stay in meditation, maybe a little bit longer, and I'm watching my mind just goes off for a moment. I'm more quickly noting the distraction back to the mind and noting when I am sitting in meditation. It could be analytical or whatever, but noting when I'm actually trying to meditate on this, but I'm kind of sleepy right now. So I'm noticing what we would call languor, sleepiness, the mind sinking, and I know what antidotes to do to help brighten up the mind. I can visualize a light at the top of my head, for instance. Maybe I need to get up and splash some cold water on my face and stand up for a few minutes and then sit back down. Maybe I need to have a cup of coffee, right? And then you want to do some meditation. So we want to get practical with this. But again, the more you simplify your life of really getting into those pockets of wisdom, compassion, right? A lot of all that other gunk in the life goes away. So it helps to simplify. So whatever meditation I'm doing, it's easier to concentrate. Slowly we build that until we have that one-pointedness like that. And then the last category for the Noble Eightfold Path, the last of the 3 higher trainings is wisdom. And this brings in the last 2 of the Noble Eightfold Path, right thought and right understanding. Right thought and right understanding. They sound kind of similar. Here's a distinction right now. Right thought talks about thoughts of, and I'm going to say selfless renunciation or detachment, thoughts of love, thoughts of nonviolence would all be considered right thought. Okay. And they're extended in our tradition to all beings, because we tended to categorize. I'm going to be nice. I like these people, so I'm nicer to them. I don't really like these people, so I'm not going to help them out. This right thought is about all beings, like that. And I had a thing when it says renunciation or detachment. This is not about, we're going to talk more about renunciation in future classes, including a meditation we'll probably do next week. There's a meditation on renunciation that comes as part of this module that I'd ask you to please try to do during this course. Detachment is not being bland and feelingless. Like, you know, like I'm detached, I don't feel anything, I'm numb. Not at all. It's, you're having a more equal regard. Like, so I'm not overly attaching to these people and then I'm willing to do anything for them. If they get harmed, I'm more disturbed than if these people get harmed. Okay. So I've got a kind of equal regard. It really courts equanimity, selfless renunciation or detachment. And true renunciation Lama Yeshe would state, true renunciation. I just want to ask you folks a little bit, I just want to get an idea. What do you think renunciation is? If anybody would care to comment. What is renunciation to you? You know, it's a word about giving up, giving things up. What does that mean? Is it really about giving things up? What things do you want to give up in renunciation? Feel free to unmute.
I don't think it's about so much like giving up as it is to not needing to be attached to it. So it's like I can enjoy ice cream, but it's how I enjoy it and what suffering happens if I don't have it. So I could renounce the ice cream, but not suffer because of it, because I still may have it. Yeah.
And also, thank you, Maureen. You might also have the ice cream, decide not to have the ice cream because that's a piece of renunciation and not be renounced at all. Because it's really disturbing you that you didn't get the ice cream as well. So that's something to think about. Like we go, oh no, I'll say, no, I'm not going to have that. I don't want that. I'm really renounced. I don't need another, I don't know. I'm thinking of an object now. I don't need another computer or another thing. I'm really renounced, but you're really desiring to have it. You're really sorry that they didn't give it to you, that they, you know. So what else do you think about renunciation? So thank you. That's interesting what you mentioned. What does it mean to you when you feel like, are you renounced enough? Any of you? I'm curious. Do you feel? Patty's going, no, no. And you know, they think monks and nuns are really renounced. I don't really think I'm that renounced. I mean, I know I'm living in a little one-room cabin. I'm pretty happy here, but I sometimes think, I don't know. But it's not about stuff. Any ideas? Any thoughts?
I'll try and articulate it for myself. It's realizing that renouncing the things that I think give me pleasure when in fact they lead to suffering. So it's renouncing that urge to go after samsaric pleasure, which is suffering.
Right. That's a huge part of it. Thank you. Thank you, Patty. That's a lot of it. Just think about that. Like, we have a lot of pleasurable things, and you know what? They're totally okay. I'm not saying don't have pleasure, but what's your relationship with it? And you know, Maureen brought up the ice cream cone. That's great. It's easy with an ice cream. It's pretty mundane. So, you know, what if you went out with friends, you're going to have ice cream and the ice cream place is closed? You know, some people are like, okay, great. Let's find another place. Or some people are like, that's fine. I didn't really care. You know, and you're sometimes there with somebody who's like, oh, they're closed. I really wanted that ice cream. Now that's a mundane thing, but look at the pleasure. You know, you have an idea about chocolate. You're getting it out of the pack. You're looking, you're watching, you're putting it into your mouth. These things, but those are mundane things, but they still have an effect, right? But then you have a family reunion. They're all coming and you're going to go to your favorite restaurant and something changes. Somebody can't make it. They got COVID. The flight didn't come. The restaurant's closed. That somebody else doesn't feel safe in that restaurant. I mean, all these things come up now. All these things have always been coming up. How's your mind? You okay with that? Or are you tweaked by it? So it's something to get real with yourself. Look at some renunciation. Here's Lama Yeshe. Renunciation, it's really simple, is giving up whatever disturbs your mind. That's real renunciation. Again, whatever disturbs your mind, please look at that this week. Please look at that this week. So, and just like what Patty said, there's a lot of pleasure that disturbs our mind too, because we get attached to it. We need that to happen again. We want that to happen. We have expectations. I know my sister talked about, I'm going to have this visit to the East Coast the end of March and April and see my family. And I've done so much travel where my sister's not coming in from England. I won't see her, but she's come in on visits at times. And there's a lot loaded up. I remember living in California and visiting my parents once or twice a year for like a week or 10 days. That was it. And there would be all these expectations I would load up on the visit. My sister has a similar thing. And you can't expect the visit to go like that. Rarely did it ever go like that, where I wanted to do this and I wanted to. And I know last summer, we did have this family reunion in Philadelphia. One of my nephews came in from England, and he very much holds on to these rituals. And there was one or two of the things we just didn't have time to do. And he really for days was like, oh, we didn't get to go to he just wouldn't let it go, and you're like, okay, because it causes a lot of suffering. It's a nice memory if it happens, but more and more I just notice this spontaneous arisal of we want to plan a few things, but let's just see what happens. Maybe it doesn't go that well. This trip to Thupten Kunga Center, I'm coming in to visit. There's so many of you I want to see and spend time with. There's so many friends I've made since 2007, since I started to teach at Thupten Kunga Center. That is one of the reasons I'm going back there, because I've got a long history with this center and made a lot of friends there. And I just really want to see these friends. And I went, you know what? I'm not going to go crazy I'll be there. We'll see what unfolds, probably make a couple of plans with, if somebody's coming from a distance but I don't want to be this crazy. I would go to California from the East Coast and have these 2-hour increments with people. And then I was exhausted, and you could. So just let's see what happens and make it more relaxed and natural. And maybe I don't see everybody that I wanted, but it's okay. So whatever disturbs your mind, can you play with that this week with renunciation? Really helpful. And then obviously the traditional definition is true renunciation is when you strive day and night to get out of samsara, to get out of this cycle of birth, old age, striving day. You're really deeply into your practice, but I really like the idea of giving up what disturbs your mind. It's so much more relaxed. So check what disturbs your mind. You really have to get clear and check what disturbs your mind. The ice cream cone may disturb your mind a little bit. So look at that. Look at your relationships. Look at how work unfolds for you, the kind of work you want to do. Look at your family relationships, situations like that. And your own behavior patterns, obviously, is what the most disturbing is. How do I respond to that situation? How do I respond? Okay. That's right thought we were just talking about. Right understanding. Okay. Right understanding, and this relates to emptiness, of things as they are. Okay. Right understanding is really ultimately reduced to the understanding of the Four Noble Truths, the highest wisdom which sees the ultimate reality directly. Okay. So this is what we'd call to have first of all, we may develop an intellectual understanding of emptiness, this lack of inherent nature. And then in meditation, we want to develop an experiential relationship to have a direct perception of emptiness, which brings us right understanding, like that. So they all kind of traverse along. So I just wanted to mention the Noble Eightfold Path of what the Buddha disseminated as a course for our lives. And you can definitely spend some time this week looking at that and relate it, please, to your own life. Really, really helpful. Okay. Another thing I'd ask you, and I really like this to be more of an experiential level of the class, is I mentioned about the Buddha, could you get enlightened? It's something to think about in this life. A lot of people don't even think about enlightenment, and they kind of go, well, that's not happening for me, they might say. But why don't you aspire to think, I'm making seeds for future lives? If you're invested, if you believe there's reincarnation, that there will be future lives, because I'm going to talk about the mind in a moment. which most of you have heard about before, but some may be new to that. So really think about investments you're making now. This is a multi-lives path. So somebody may be able to get enlightened in this life. That's fantastic. But for most of us, we're purifying negativities, accumulating the conditions that we need, and trying to evolve a little bit more each time we come around. So, but I like to relate to that of one day, maybe, one day I'm making some seeds now. I'm purifying some effects that are not necessary, that are negative, getting those out, And so as a result, let that be exciting for you of like, I just felt honestly, any hard times you have, I just came through this, what I might call this 4-month purification. It was really rough here for a while. And I was really assessing like, can I help? How is best for me to help? Should I be here? Whatever, even when I wasn't living here. And it was really, a lot of us were struggling. The place was really in the shambles, and where do we start? Like that. And so you start kind of assessing that. And yet I wondered, and I felt like, so now I turned a corner, something shifted. And I'm really kind of glad for that period, because I feel like something washed out that needed to go, that has just made me more buoyant, a little bit more balanced. And even though it's hard work, but I just feel a little bit more excited, enthusiastic about like, we can do this, 2 steps forward, 1 step back, as you've heard me say before. So again, it's kind of like, what about your enlightenment? Like, okay, I'm not close, I'm not there, but maybe I'm making some seeds, and you get a little glimmer of something. Very important for you to consider. Think about it. Let me talk about the mind for a moment. Then we're going to do a meditation on the mind that I've done with a lot of you before, but this is a key component of this class, is we need to understand what mind is in Tibetan Buddhism, because the mantra Lama Zopa Rinpoche uses a lot is everything comes from the mind. Everything comes from the mind. And it's a radical approach for most of us that come from a Judeo-Christian religion. There's a God, the creator, like that. So consider this. So the mind in Tibetan Buddhism, it's unique. It is a continuum, for one, which means there's no beginning, no end to the consciousness. That's a word I'm equating with mind or consciousness. That continuum is made up of moments of mind or consciousness, each one setting up a cause for the next moment, creating a cause for the next moment. So people say, well, what was the first moment of mind? Well, what happens is, if you realize that each moment is not just random, but there's a moment before that preceded it, that caused it. There's this particular moment of mind arises from the previous moment, even though there's different thoughts and feelings and experiences. So if you say that all these other moments have a preceding moment that caused it, you can't go back to a first moment, because Tibetan Buddhism will say there's a moment before that preceded it and caused it. And if you want to continue further, this moment is the result of the preceding moment. It's a result of the preceding moment, and every moment is creating another result. So there's no end to the mind. No end to the mind. So that's a unique setup, where we like to have a God, the creator. This was day one, on this day, God created this. And we're even everything, our time, everything, our calendars, this is the first day of the week. This class starts at 7 p.m. for East Coast people. That's the beginning of the class. This is the end of the class. We have to exist somewhat linearly, just out of practicality, that the meeting starts at this time and it ends at this time, right? That's okay. But if you consider that my mind goes on, then reincarnation is possible. But you slowly want to do some meditations on the nature of the mind. In Buddhism, the mind also has 2 qualities, only 2 qualities. It's clear and it's knowing. Clear and aware. That's your mind. So most people will say, nope, not having any experience of my mind being clear. My mind is cluttered, busy, distracted, and full of a lot of garbage. Okay. That's not the true nature of your mind. Okay? So one great antidote to dealing with your mind when it feels like that, the busyness, when you're getting down on yourself because you can't concentrate, when you're losing things, when irritation pops up, attachment pops up and you get down on yourself, right? The antidote is remind yourself of the nature of your mind. It's not distraction and irritation and attachment and busyness. Those are simply habits that I've practiced again and again and again, and that's why they're familiar in my mind. If I don't like some of those mental experiences, like anger, pride, jealousy, fear, anxiety, depression, you can eliminate those from your mind permanently. And you'll still be you, you'll still have your same personality, and you'll actually be happier. That's the Buddhist path. Reducing those delusions, those imbalanced mental states. If you want to go back to renunciation and Lama Yeshe, give up whatever disturbs your mind. That's what causes your suffering. So the nice reminder is this clear, spacious, luminous space of awareness that is your mind. Okay, let's try meditation right now. Just to remind, this is a meditation. It's not technically part of this course as far as a printout, but it's really easy to just take yourself back into this. I'm going to use the clear mountain lake. But sometimes you can remind yourself as if you're looking up into the clear blue sky. I've done that meditation a lot. Your mind is like the clear blue sky without any clouds in it. And you want to merge yourself with that as much as possible. And just note your thoughts and distractions simply like clouds passing through the sky. You don't have to get attached to them. Let them go. They change. They pass away. So when you're really agitated, when you're having a big delusion that topples that clear, spacious experience of your mind, try to remind yourself, my mind's like the sky, like the clear blue sky. Try to take yourself back through that meditation as if you're gazing into the clear blue sky. That's one way you can do. Let's focus on this. So just find a comfortable position. I'd love you to try to do this meditation this week. Some of you are familiar with this. Close your eyes lightly, please. Just take a few breaths, normal, natural breaths, just to settle your mind there on the breath. And I'd like you to imagine right now, you're seated next to a beautiful, clear mountain lake. You're on the banks of the lake, gazing out over the expanse of this large, clear lake. Just try to visualize as best as you can. The surface is clear like glass. And as you gaze out and look across the surface, try to focus there as best as you can. But for most of us, distraction will arise as a thought. Maybe you get distracted by a sound. And it creates some distracted energy in your mind. No problem. Just notice as if that distraction rises up from the depths of the lake, comes up as a bubble on the surface. The bubble creates ripples on the surface of the lake, just like those thoughts and mental experiences create reverberations in our mind. It's a little light thought, little ripples or disturbance. Heavy negative thought can create larger ripples of disturbance. So again, as you stay focused on the surface of the lake, just play with that a bit, noting what comes into the mind if it does. Notice the bubble come up, form, ripple out. Let it go and let that bubble return to the surface as the ripples subside. So again, your mind is very much like this clear lake, merging yourself with that as much as you can. But just notice thoughts or distractions that arise. Again, just bubbles coming to the surface, ripples going out. Then returning, ripples subsiding. Returning yourself to that clear, luminous nature of the lake that is like your mind, and just focus as much as you can on that experience with as much concentration as you can. So when your mind is all over the place, if you're struggling, you can quickly remind yourself about the lake or the sky. This is really the true nature of your mind, clear and knowing. We can slowly train ourselves. Please relax. And slowly, when you're ready, just open your eyes and just notice any sensations, any experiences that bubble up. So, one thing that helps us on this path is as you start to explore this idea of the mind as a continuum, and they say that the mind's clear and knowing, you start dipping your toe in that water. And some antidotes are applied and techniques that may show you how to train in transforming anger or attachment or these other imbalances I mentioned. And some of you have been using that and have been in these classes before. So you realize, and I'm just going to check in with all of you of, have you noticed some benefits to your mind, and have you noticed you're better able to control your mind? Those of you, I know you've been at it 1 year, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years. Does it work, this path of what you've been applying and what you've learned and put it into application? I'm just curious. Anybody care to comment?
Yeah, it works.
It works, Jack, doesn't it?
Works.
I mean, so what
I
happens
gotta,
from that,
yeah.
and some of you I've known for some years, so I see the progression personally. I see positive changes in you, is what I'm saying. So for me, it was a sign for myself when I learned a few techniques of how do you deal with this delusion or this imbalance, and it took effort to kind of reach for those antidotes instead of my normal habitual tendencies. But once applying it, I kind of realized it helps. It seems to help. So that deepened my faith. That gave me some confidence. Maybe there is something to this path. So partly what we're trying to do is develop the positive in your mind. And here's another thing, whether you're Buddhist or not, why not? Why not develop the positive? Okay. And wouldn't I like to, in the same time, get rid of the negative? Get rid of the negative. We know people, lots of people that are just negative and critical all the time. We don't like being around them. Most people don't want to be around them. Okay. And people that are really positive, and how pleasant it is to be in their presence. They always have a positive twist on even any kind of problem. It's pleasant. So why don't we just on our own? That sounds like a pretty good path. That is this path as well. That sounds pretty good. So Buddhism, as you know, on this path is we don't have a God the creator, separate God the creator, kind of superior being that, all of reality came from. Again, everything comes from the mind. How does the Buddha relate to that? What about the Buddha, people say? Is that kind of the person you pray to? Is that what we mean? So again, the qualities of a Buddha is a different thing than a separate God, the creator from you. Okay. It does seem equated to a God, but it depends what you mean by God. So a lot of people ask me, and they go, is Buddha like God? Is that who you pray to? What's your notion of God? And some people have God as an unchanging, separate entity that makes all of your stuff happen. You'd pray to them to be like, please let me live another year. Please let my daughter not die of leukemia. Or please, as if there's something external that's going to make that happen. No notion of karma. No notion of emptiness, which are very related. Okay. Karmic seeds, meaning a propensity, an imprint in your consciousness. Okay. everything I do with my body, speech, or mind creates an imprint in my mind. Okay. And as we know, the positive imprints create positive experiences for me in the future. The negative imprints create negative experiences for me, suffering, for me, not for anyone else, for me. In my mind, like that is what Buddhism says. There's no one doing it to me. There's no more, I'm not a victim, and there's nobody to blame anymore, not even myself. This is simply about taking responsibility, not having a creator, a separate creator that's doing, with a separate creator for me, and I'd like you to look at this for yourself, because I know we were raised this way, a lot of us, okay? For a separate creator for me, it took all my power away. So I don't really have the power, but somebody else could possibly do this to me. Somebody else made this happen. So I can't make it happen. But due to your karmic seeds, as Buddhism says, this karma means action in Sanskrit, cause and effect. Everything I think, say, or do makes an imprint in my mind that will come to fruition in one way or another, unless I purify it first. Okay? So it's something to think about. Then I'm involved in my life's evolution. I'm involved. I can make it happen. I can choose wisely virtue as much as possible. I can make the good choices. And I can also, in those good choices, steer myself away from the negativity as much as I can. And that's the best you can do. You can't do other people's karma. You can't fix them, right? You can help them and support them, but you can't do it for me. And I can't do it for them. And there's a lot of people we want to change. It's up to them to want to change. We can support them. We can give them information, just as I'm giving you information right now. Okay? I'm giving you information. I ask you, please check up thoroughly. This is not a path of just swallowing because she said so, she's bald, maroon robes. You yourself, please, you have to check. You have to check up everything I'm saying. Please investigate. How does it work? So, and then this is the other thing to think about. These are things I thought about. I don't know your experience of God or your belief system, but the way I was raised with God is God was omnipotent, all powerful, and possibly omniscient, all knowing, but there was an omnipotence. And I don't know your own experience. And I just want to get a sense. If you had a belief system in God or you were raised with a God, was it omnipotent, all powerful, or was it more of an omniscient being? Any feedback on that?
It was kind of both.
Both.
Kind of both.
Yeah,
Yeah.
both.
Both. Okay. Because I had definitely the both concept for me. There was definitely this all powerfulness. Now, for me, so this is what I thought about later, got into Buddhism, all powerful. If you're all powerful, can't you stop war? Can't you stop people from dying? Can't you stop floods and fires? And I don't know. That's what all powerful means to me, unless I'm missing something. So these are just ways I would, my own trajectory, chip away at, was there really this separate God, the creator, that I, as a kid, had a belief system in? Thought there was. So you have to investigate yourself. You have to investigate and check up. But those were some things that, okay, the Buddha, okay, is omniscient, not omnipotent, omniscient, all knowing. So that's why the Buddha can't fix us, because they would, believe me, like that. They can't fix us, okay? And what they tend to be in our tradition is simply a manifestation of that omniscient consciousness in whatever form they take, because we have many different Buddha images, different what I'll call deities in Tibetan Buddhism. So that if you need more compassion, you might want to look at different forms of Chenresig, the Buddha of infinite compassion. And the interesting thing about these Buddhas is they have different forms for whatever we might need. There's even a wrathful form of compassion. Sometimes we need that to go a little stronger, but from a compassionate sense. If you want more wisdom, you're going to talk to Manjushri, the Buddha of infinite wisdom, and he has many different forms. One of them happens to purify disease. Like that. There's Tara, female emanation. So I often come in contact of thinking about the Buddha as simply a manifestation of a certain energy that is what I can also develop my mind into. That's what the path says. There's something to think about that. But there are some similarities between the God-based religions, monotheistic religions of one God, but depends how you're talking about the God. If the God is omniscient, all-knowing, all-compassionate, all-wise, that's very similar to the Buddha. If that God is not a physical presence, like having a Buddha mind, some people say God is everywhere. Okay, well, that Dharmakaya, wisdom pervading everything, is like that. So you have to be very specific in what you mean by things like that. But a separate God, the creator, that's making my reality for me, Buddhism doesn't have a belief in that. But here's an interesting thing. We've talked before, and some of you, maybe it's new. Buddha nature. What does that mean? Buddha nature. Okay. This is a potential. Every living being, Tibetan Buddhism says, every living being with a mind, with a consciousness, has Buddha nature. Now, what that means is it doesn't mean you're a Buddha. A Buddha just in Sanskrit means fully awakened being. Fully awake, you're enlightened. Okay, completely omniscient, free of all fears, every perfect quality developed, full on wisdom and compassion. Okay, but just because you have Buddha nature does not mean you have removed every veil of obscuration to that Buddha nature. No, right now we are what are called sentient beings. Sentient beings, okay? Like a mind possessor. Sentient being is a mind possessor, they say. Sem Chen in Tibetan, Sem Chen. Sem is mind, Chen, having mind, having a consciousness. So if you're a mind possessor, a being having consciousness, you possess consciousness, okay? This is your potential. It's like if you have an acorn, okay, the potential for an oak tree to be there is there in the acorn, okay? But again, you need to water it, you need to fertilize it, it needs some sunlight. You know, my Buddha nature's there. If I'm not going to make the effort to meditate, to learn how to meditate well on the right topics, learn how to do it properly, to study, to engage in some courses, to read some Dharma materials and books, to put all that together into a rich, robust practice, a consistent practice, then it's going to delay me merging with my Buddha nature and uncovering all the veils of obscuration that prevent me from experiencing my Buddha nature and being a Buddha. Okay. But because there is this Buddha nature in my mind, it exists now with the right situation, the right causes and conditions, the Buddha will emerge at some point. The Buddha will emerge. Okay, it's by going along this path, especially presenting the path, especially this particular path, following the different levels and the instructions slowly. Okay, enlightenment is the goal. Enlightenment is out there. Does it take effort? Yeah, it takes effort. Sure, everything in life takes effort. That. And so we kind of build with the Lam Rim again. You know, first we're a lower capable being, and I get afraid of what's going to come next, so it motivates me to practice. And then I want to learn about what's great about having a human rebirth, and that the situation could pass away soon and I'm going to die. And when I die, I could go to lower realms, and that scares me. So I want to take proper refuge to get protection. And once I have refuge and have entered that, as they say, the sacred door through which the teachings are entered, I want to learn how to conduct myself. So I learn about karma. So those are all those topics for that lower capable being's motivation. And then I realize medium capable being, there's still all this suffering. You know, I'm still suffering just as it is right now in this wonderful life I have. So then we explore all the different kinds of suffering. So I'm clearer about how I suffer so I can avoid that kind of suffering, but to learn that there's an end to the suffering by transforming, delving into ignorance, finding the concentration to meditate on emptiness, and developing a good understanding of emptiness intellectually, and then perhaps a direct perception at some point. Okay? And that's going to short circuit my suffering. So bring about an end to my own suffering. Isn't that great? I won't suffer anymore. I'll reach nirvana or liberation. And that's a permanent cessation of all my mental afflictions. Well, that's great. But then I come to the higher capable beings, motivation. But what about all these other beings suffering? What about all these other beings suffering? I can't live with that. So if I can build on that, my own suffering's ended, if I can develop the good heart, bodhicitta, if I can practice that in a perfect way with compassion and wisdom, I can become a Buddha. Then I can unlimitedly help because I'm omniscient, free of all fear. What's your relationship with that? It's doable. It's possible. But that's our path, and that's our path through the Lamrim. Okay, so I talked about this. So we have in Buddhism a very psychological and spiritual experience on this path. It's not just a spiritual experience, but there's also the mind is transforming. And I find that a really interesting part of it. And Lama Yeshe wrote this great book, Becoming Your Own Therapist. Becoming Your Own Therapist. So very much through the Lamrim, I find this is really helpful. And I'll give examples. We get down on ourselves as Westerners, as you know. People talk crap to themselves, critical. I should have done better. Even impossible tasks. We lay this out with other people around us. I should have helped her more. I should have fixed her. All you can do is fix your own mind. But we lay these things on ourselves. But if you suddenly get into the Lamrim and you go, wait a minute, I have a precious human rebirth. It's one of the first topics in the Lamrim, the advantageousness of being a human being. Fantastic situations. Okay, we're going to talk more about that in the next class. Okay, but through this, I can better balance myself and say, oh yeah, right. That's right. I have a really good situation right now. And if I want to go to the next topic, death and impermanence, and realize, first of all, just basic impermanence, everything changes. And because everything's changing, one day I'm going to die. This is matter. This wears out. This wears out. That's reality. That's touching reality. So if I think I'm going to live forever, I'm in for a big shock. When you get sick, it's a big shock. So if I can just start balancing my mind now and go, yeah, that's reality. I'm facing upside and I'm participating in my karma as a result of that in a realistic, practical way. Okay. Then you have more balance in your mind. That's how you become your own therapist. Then you have more balance in your mind. That's Dharma practice. That's why it's spiritual. I see the Buddha, I'm motivated, I get inspired, I want to be like that. But psychological, fix our minds. That's what we're doing here. That's what this path is about. So I'm just going to finish one thing and then I'm going to take questions. How to listen to the teachings. How to listen to the teachings. I mentioned, please check up. I'll say this again and again. Test the teachings. I asked you this week, please think about the Noble Eightfold Path. How's it going in your life? The Noble Eightfold Path. What do you need to tweak and adjust? Okay. What do you think about renunciation? Which means you have to look at what is disturbing your mind now, on the gross levels, we get it. We know what's disturbing our mind. What's disturbing your mind on a more subtle level? Look at that. More subtle, little bubbles of distraction and disturbance happen sometimes. You might not really be angry, but there's a little bit of annoyance going on every time you're in this situation. Well, look at that. What do you need to adjust there? These are a few things I'd ask you to look at. Can you do the mind meditation? Again, remind yourself, do it 3 or 4 times this week. It doesn't take long. Do it for however long you can do it. Over and over, just reminding yourself, this is my mind, clear, spacious, when you're really cluttered, when you're too busy, when you're too scattered, when you're losing things, when you're dropping tasks you're supposed to be finishing and doing. And please check up on what I'm saying. Please see how it works. So I want to talk about the 3 pots, how we listen to teachings. A lot of you are familiar with this. And these Buddhist teachings really, the Buddha gives these teachings as personal advice. It's nice to look at them as personal advice. What can I personally apply to my life right now? That's when it gets juicier. Okay, the 3 pots, as we know, okay, we have, how do we listen to teachings? Well, first of all, there's a dirty pot. And what happens with the dirty pot is you're listening to teachings and you got all these scummy thoughts of your own floating around. So you're not really here. Everything gets tainted. Like a teaching may come in and you go, well, she said that, there's continuum mind. I don't believe in that. It's garbage. You have other thoughts floating around. So then you can't retain anything. It doesn't come in. You're not allowing it in. Then you have a pot, has a hole in the bottom. You're kind of half listening. Everything comes in. And I've seen people walk out of teachings with the Dalai Lama and people go, wow, that was really powerful. And then you go, what is holy? I wasn't at the teaching. What did His Holiness say? I don't know. Nothing went in, just went right through the pot. Then you have a pot where the lid is on too tightly. Nothing comes in. I've already made my mind up, I don't believe in we're going to die. I don't really think I don't believe in karma. Made my mind up. Okay. So think about, do you have any of those qualities of the pot? Can I shift something a little bit to be a little bit, as a better disciple, they say, to be impartial, to be open to the teachings, listening well, like that's a neat habit to get into that they talk about in this particular module. I'm going to stop there. Please, are there any questions on anything I've been talking about? Meditation, anything? Please just feel free to unmute.
Well, Amy, when you were, did someone else, go ahead, is someone else saying something?
No, go ahead, Maureen.
It was just a quick question
Sure.
about
Jeff, you guys duke it out.
Yeah. the handouts that we were sent, those required readings. I mean, are those meditations that we can be doing? There was, I think, 3 meditations that were in there, and then also another booklet.
Yeah, I think I mentioned last week, I'm sorry if I didn't. If you want to do this as a certificate class, let Patty know. And what that means is you have to complete all the required readings. You have to do the 3 meditations, and those meditations I'd ask you to do, like take 1 a week, and you have to do it 3 or 4 times that week till you're familiar with it. And the meditations, the official ones, are on renunciation, bodhicitta, and emptiness. I would certainly start with the renunciation meditation now. And any of you can do it. You don't need to do it for a certificate. Just do it and enjoy. I'm going to start leading you through that slowly. It's a long meditation. I'm going to slowly lead you through that starting next week. And what you actually do when you're doing the meditation on your own is bring it up on your screen if you want. You can have your computer or your tablet in front of you. Okay, just don't get distracted by other things on it. Just do the meditation or print it out. Some people like to print it out. You're going to have the right motivation, the right posture, and then it will say the actual meditation. You read a couple sentences, reflect deeply on those sentences using things you heard in the class, things you're reading from the course materials, your own life experiences. You want to analytically apply from every direction to deepen your experience of that, of what they're talking about. What you might have knowledge of, but I'll lead you through some of that next week, but absolutely start. And regarding the readings, let me go through the different readings right now. There's the required readings that are outlined. There's also something called the Wish Fulfilling Golden Sun. And there's Lama Zopa Rinpoche by Lama Zopa, the teachings of the direct meditations. I would start by looking at the Refuge section of that. There's a reading by Lama Yeshe called Turning the Wheel. You can read that one. There's also an outline from Nick Rebush, the outline of the path to enlightenment. So you could have a look at that. So those are some of the readings. There's also a book called Wisdom Energy that is a separate one. I think you have to get from either buy it or Patty can give you all this information that is available either through the Lama Yeshe Wisdom Archive, or Patty can give you all the links. And there's sections of Wisdom Energy you can read that's really beautiful. And then there's a book called Essence of Tibetan Buddhism by Lama Yeshe that talks about the 3 principal aspects of the path, and there's guidance under that. So Patty, can you just make sure that you have all that outlined for everybody of those different, I think that's what she sent out. So please let me know, anyone, if you're not clear on the readings or I don't have this piece, let Patty know which parts, and then Patty, you can let me know if you're missing any of that. But Jeff, I'd say I would start with Wish Fulfilling Golden Sun. That section is smaller pages of stuff. And the more you read and get and put into the course, the more you're going to get out of it, obviously. Some people just want to show up weekly. That's fine. But definitely the more readings you go, they all enhance your knowledge and it'll deepen your knowledge. And the meditations are great as well. Does that help?
Yes, thank you. Because I
That's
was
all.
looking through those and I was like, did I miss something? Is there gonna, I'm the teacher, is this my homework? Is there
That's
a
right.
test?
That's right. You're a teacher. So that's right. So now what people can do is there are online, and if people want to do the certificate program, they tell Patty, I will do an assessment with you at the end. And there is even an online exam you can try and test your knowledge like that. So again, there are different things. So if you want to get that certificate, do let me know. You do need to participate in the day long or the part of the day meditation as part of that. That is required. So it's the meditations, the readings, coming to the classes, and doing the meditation aspect, the day long meditation that we'll have in Florida as a hybrid like that. Maureen, please.
This would be a good example of a leaky pot. No, he may not be here still. When I first started, I think what I had a hard time with was the idea of Buddhism not having a God. Yet, ideally, they have deities, which in my mind is a form of a God or a supernatural being. So in my thinking about this, because it just resurfaced again in the class, is that depending, I think, on what you think God is, actually has an effect on Buddhism believing in a God. Because when you pray as a Buddhist, like, are you praying to Manjushri to be able to be smarter so you can pass your test, people probably pray that way. Or if you're saying, oh God, guide me to not be nervous and to, watch over and bless me, or whatever that may be. So to me, I think it's like an energy force, and I don't see a clear delineation. And maybe that's because I'm still trying to understand the differences. But
sure. No, that's a great question, Maureen. Is what we're generally doing is a form of prayer in Tibetan Buddhism is to do retreat with mantra recitation. And ultimately, if you get a highest yoga tantra initiation, you are basically trying to do a retreat on that particular deity. You got initiated into their world system. You've been given permission through a process of a ceremony with visualization and some recitations. And then the reason you want to do this certain retreat with some mantra recitation, it creates a closer connection of you with that deity, but that energy that deity represents. So if I want more wisdom, I'm going to do practices where I visualize a certain aspect of the Buddha and recite some mantras that from my own experience deepen my wisdom. So I'm not just praying to somebody separate outside of me. I'm trying to create that own reverberation in me, because that energy lives in me ultimately in my Buddha nature. I just don't have it revealed yet because I'm got too many ordinary things going along in a limited consciousness. Every time I do or connect with that, now you can just, be looking for parking space in Manhattan, and I will do this, and I'll think about Tara and go, Tara, can you just help me find a parking space right now? And I'll say some Tara mantras. Now, honestly, that's mundane. I'm doing it on a mundane level. I'm not going to ask Tara to help my baseball team win. Like I ain't going there. I mean, I might jokingly say that, but what I'm doing, but it's neat for me to kind of call up a higher level of consciousness when I'm looking for a parking space. Why not? Because what people do in parking spaces is they drive around cursing and irritated. So all I'm always trying to do is create an enhancement for my consciousness, reminding it of omniscient consciousness every single moment I'm breathing. So when you get highest yoga tantra initiation, you then can do practices of visualizing yourself as a certain deity. And I'm going to try to go through space as much as I can with that consciousness. So I'm practicing the result already. I'm bringing the result into now. And I'm trying to visualize everyone around me in that deity's pure realm. Why not? Because what we normally do as ordinary beings is everything is caca, and everything is separate. And there's me and there's everybody else. And if you interfere with what I want or my family or my loved ones, I'm going to get upset. And that's not the way things exist at all. So you see the difference? Like when I pray to God separate, I kind of am releasing myself from any participation and go, can you please help, like bless this and do it? And then that's it. I'm not having this whole interactive relationship with, I'm one day going to be that consciousness. The consciousness lives in me now. I'm just happen to be obscured because I've got limited mind, but I'm working on things right now to increase my awareness of that higher level of consciousness while reducing the obscurations. So it's a very active, energetic participation. Does that make sense? That help? Okay. So it is, sometimes it's similar, me just, somebody's sick in a hospital room, you suddenly visualize the medicine Buddha over them. Like you could say, God, please come. And like then there's some similarity, but there's much more, I think, involvement we need to do to really have that effect, for it to take effect. Now, it doesn't mean that when you say, please, can you help? The Buddhas, I think, come as soon as somebody starts praying. They want to come and help. But I like very much to imagine that consciousness also resides in me. If I'm looking at a picture outside of me, it's reminding me of my connection with that's actually any teacher I have. It's really, they're just an external manifestation of my own highest wisdom and compassion. So I'm very involved in the process. Okay. Any last things from anyone? Okay. I'm going to close there. And I just want to bring up a couple brief dedication prayers. I'm going to share my screen. And feel free if you'd like to recite along with me. I'd like to invest whatever positive energy we've created. I would like to dedicate it to some pacification instantly of what's going on between Russia and Ukraine right now, and all the other hostility on the planet to be eased and pacified immediately. And for all those with COVID and other illnesses, may this virus find its end on our planet and disappear, as well as all other pandemics and all other imbalances, body and mind, for all beings. May we invest whatever merit we've created from our time together to helping us move along this path to enlightenment so we can quickly become Buddhas and benefit all living beings. May the precious supreme Bodhichitta not yet born arise. May that arisen not decline, but increase more and more. However many sick sentient beings there are, may they quickly be freed from all sicknesses. May all the sicknesses without exception of transmigratory beings never occur again. This essential dedication Rinpoche likes with emptiness, due to all the past, present, and future merits collected by me, the numberless Buddhas, the numberless sentient beings, which are completely empty of existing from their own side. May I, who am completely empty of existing from my own side, achieve the state of full enlightenment, which is completely empty of existing from its own side, and lead all sentient beings who are completely empty of existing from their own side to that state, which is completely empty of existing from its own side, by myself alone, whom completely empty of existing from my own side. Whatever understanding you have of emptiness, please reflect for a moment. I fully dedicate all these virtues to be able to train just like the hero Manjushri, who knows reality, and just like Samantabhadra as well. And the long life prayers for His Holiness the Dalai Lama and Lama Zopa Rinpoche. The wish-granting, wish-fulfilling jewel, source of every single benefit and happiness in this world, to the incomparably kind Tenzin Gyatso I beseech, may all your holy wishes be spontaneously fulfilled. For Lama Zopa Rinpoche, you who uphold the subduer's moral way, who serve as the bountiful bearer of all, sustaining, preserving, and spreading Manjunath's victorious doctrine, who masterfully accomplish magnificent prayers honoring the three sublime ones, Savior of myself and others, your disciples, please, please live long. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, Patty and Thupten Khunga Center. I look forward to seeing you next week. If you're interested, I do lead meditation every Saturday morning, 12:30 Eastern Time, 12:30 p.m. Eastern Time, 9:30 in the morning, California time. The link you can find here on my website. Thank you so much, everyone. And please don't forget your exercises. I will send those to Patty midweek or mid time for the course, and wishing you all the best.
Thank you so much, Venerable Amy. Appreciate it. Thank you, everyone, for coming.
And if you know anyone that is interested in a director or manager position at a center like Land of Medicine Buddha, we are actively seeking someone right now. So please send them to me. Thank you. Lovely to see all of you.
Thank you, Venerable Amy.
Namaste.
Namaste.